The Bravemaker Show is hosted by Tony Gaffestone and Christina Jackson. Thanks for tuning in. It's showtime.
It's Tony Gaffestone. Hello. I am live in Redwood City right now. I'm in the Bravemaker headquarters, and I am with live Doug ROLAND. So if you're watching live, you get to see him in the Bravemaker studio here. We're really excited to have him with us today. And you can see we also have our helicopter cockpit headphones on. Feels like we're about to take flight. But Doug is here in Redwood City, up from LA, because he's going to be screening his short film, Feeling Through, which is Oscar nominated this past year, 2021. And we get to show it live in the downtown Redwood City in partnership with the Parks and Recreation Community Services, which we're really stoked about. So Doug, thanks for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, dude. All right, so we have been talking a little bit in the car and at lunch already, but for an in-depth podcast conversation, I would love, first of all, people who don't know about Feeling Through, just tell us about it. Tell us about anything you want. And then I want to talk some nitty gritty about the making of. You told me some things in the car that were super cool and fascinating for our viewers and podcast listeners that I'd like to get into. But just talk about how it came to be. I know it's based on a true story.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it all starts 10 years ago. I was living in New York City at the time where I'm from, and I was coming home late one night and I saw a man standing on a street corner holding a sign that said, "I'm deaf and blind and need help crossing the street. Can you tap me?" It was really
tap, like he wanted to tap like that.
Yeah. It's what it said on the sign.
Yeah.
And there was no one else around. It was really late at night. And, I approached this man, and it turned into this little part of a night together where we ended up waiting for his bus together. And on the spot, I'd figured out to communicate with him by tracing one letter at a time on his palm. And we had a whole conversation that way of me writing on his palm, him writing back in a notepad he had. And for so many reasons, it was just such a resonant experience for me. And that was the jump off point for the film. The film is fiction, it's a fictionalized version of that, but that was definitely the inspiration for it. And, it was something that I wrote 9 years ago, but it lived on my computer for about 6 years before I actually felt like it was the right timing to make it. And when it was, I just had this gut feeling, and I ended up reaching out to, I ended up actually Googling deaf blind organization, because I knew I wanted to make it in partnership with people that knew a lot more about the community than me at that time. But I didn't know anyone in the community. And I ended up connecting with Helen Keller National Center, and I've been partnering with them ever since then.
So cool. So wait, 9 years ago, you had that real life experience.
The experience was actually 10 years ago, and I wrote it about a year after that.
Wow. Yeah. It just goes to show how long the filmmaking process, the idea generation process is. You were talking to me at lunch how you're a slow creative.
Right.
So that, that's there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their own time and space, but that it's a cool encouragement to not put off the fact that maybe the idea you had last year didn't get off the ground yet, because it takes time to make things happen. So back me up. Had you made a short film and films beforehand? What were you doing? How did you get to that space of 10 years ago?
Yeah, I studied filmmaking in college. I was making some stuff, with friends out of college. I'd say the film that kind of really started me on this trajectory, I had made a short called Jada several years prior to Feeling Through. And that was a film that when I moved from New York City to Los Angeles, I landed in Venice initially. And Venice Beach is just such a singular area.
I was just there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's just so I mean, it's just it's its own thing.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to like tell a story that was inspired by the environment in some way because it's just such a unique space and place. And this story came to me in a flash about this little girl living on the beach by herself, and it ended up being this story about this 7-year-old runaway, and it completely just came to me in a flash, like fictionalized. And it did well and went to like a lot of festivals and whatnot. But it was when it went online, it went super viral. It got like 6 million views the first week, and now it has like 24 million views. And something that I noticed that was like really interesting in scrolling through these thousands of comments and getting all these emails and messages was that there were a lot of people who were inspired to look into adoption and foster care after watching the film. And, that wasn't the intention of the film, but, part of the story is this is a 7-year-old girl who's lost both of her parents, and she's in this abusive foster care situation. And this light bulb went off of like, oh, wow, like I guess I gravitate towards stories that tend to have social issues that can get people thinking about it in a different way. And that was really what set me on this path of, and definitely was the precursor in many ways to Feeling Through.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm seeing Robertino Regalado, who's our head programmer, is chiming in. He's the reason we found you. He, I think, scouted your film at some film festival and said we needed to program you, as well as my brother's watching live. So hello, fratello. I am really interested in that, how just kind of this flash idea came, and then the idea of this really poignant film that raised all these justice issues and concerns, goes viral. People are telling you they're being impacted. Because for Bravemaker, that's why we started, because we want to, I mean, I love entertainment. I love escapism. And there's, I think, good reasons we need that in the world to cope, right? And at the same time, I think the power of storytelling to bring awareness, to bring hope, to help create empathy and give people an awareness of what the other looks like. So you'd never thought, I mean, the themes of your films have these similar, that wasn't your intention, just kind of fell into your lap, and you realized the power that you had to be able to impact change.
Yeah, it really wasn't my intention, especially initially. I mean, it really was I guess you could say the impact work came out of what I naturally gravitated towards as a storyteller.
Yeah.
Now there's more consciousness and awareness around it because it's a space that I've, stepped into a lot further with the work that we've done with Feeling Through, where we have screened it in a number of different environments to raise awareness about the deafblind community, about, accessibility, about inclusion in storytelling.
Yeah.
So I definitely have learned a lot more about what that is and much more consciously engage in that space now. But initially it was just, I guess I kind of like backed my way into it almost unknowingly.
So we were talking about this on the way over, but fundraising when it comes to films is hard regardless. It's hard to get money. It's hard to incite people to give, because film in many spectrums, it doesn't always reward, and the investment is risky. But in regards to social issue films, especially when you have a fiscal sponsor like the Helen Keller Foundation, talk about some of the pros and cons, the challenges, the things that seems to work for you as you were trying to get the attention on, and I don't know what Jada was, and we can talk about that as well, but from Jada to Feeling Through, what it's been like funding these stories that have social impact.
Well, I mean, something like Jada was completely out of pocket for me. So it was a lot of begging, borrowing, and stealing with heavy quotation marks around it. Because the only stealing we did was locations, as far as not getting permits and what have you, a little run and gun there. But, with Feeling Through, I knew I was going to need a lot more resources and a lot more people who were, had an expertise in things that I knew very little about at the time. We needed a whole communication team to facilitate communication between myself and our deafblind actor, Robert Tarango. I needed people that really understood the community so that I could learn about the community as we were leading up to the film and really make meaningful relationships within the community. So it was integral for me to partner with Helen Keller National Center. And I really credit Sue Rosensky, who at the time was the executive director there and is now the CEO of the parent organization, Helen Keller Services, who is someone that really was able to see outside of the box and go, hey, we've never done this before as an organization, but this sounds like an amazing opportunity to serve our mission. So like, I want to figure this out with you. And if it wasn't for her, really kind of going above and beyond normal protocol, I don't think we would have been able to make this film.
We were talking in the car about the need to find out of the box champions, film lovers, film audiences, film sponsors, and donors who can elevate the need, because there's so many rejections, there's so many no's, and the challenge to get that, that meeting with the person who's going to go, green light sounds so official, but to really say yes and come, it's so rare. So Sue, way to go, Sue. We need more Sues in the world. And Sue paved the way to make a Oscar nomination come for Feeling Through. Robertino, our head programmer here, is saying, my opinion is Feeling Through should have won an Oscar over Two Distant Strangers. So let's chat about this, because the art evaluation in commercial commerce, Oscar land, and all these different things makes me think. So you were telling me the cool backstory, so maybe you can do that a little bit. But you make this film, you go to film festivals, you have the opportunity to become eligible for the Academy Awards. And you do that basically within hours of the deadline, because you got some inspiration from some people. It seemed like there was some traction. Other producers were saying, yeah, this has a good shot. Talk about what was in your head at the time. At one point you said to me, do I have the time? Do I want to? Is this necessary? And then when it happens, talk about how you process that as an artist, and what that does to you while you're watching the competition, the PR, and someone else wins. How does that affect you as an artist?
Well, I mean, going back to the beginning of that process, I was not going to submit to the Oscars. Like, I knew nothing about that landscape, and I just assumed that, I'm like, we're not going to, we don't have I don't know. I mean, we were busy. We were fortunately, had a lot of opportunities to screen the film, not just at some great film festivals, but also in a lot of other spaces. And we were really busy with that. So I was initially thinking it wasn't going to be worth the time, investment. But I ended up connecting with Andrew Carlberg, who came on as an executive producer. And I really credit him for encouraging me to submit. He had someone who had been a producer on Skin that had won in that category 2 years prior.
Love that short, yeah.
And so he had obviously had a lot of experience in that space. And he said, look, I think you'd have a really great shot here. I think this is something that would really, have a really good chance. And so I was literally like uploading the assets onto the Academy portal with like hours to go before the deadline. And we ended up in a really organic way connecting with Marlee Matlin and Jack Jason, her longtime producing partner and interpreter. They loved the film, and it was right up their alley as far as the kind of inclusive content, authentically cast content that is really important to them. That and huge congrats to them on Coda, which just came out recently.
Yeah. See Coda on Apple TV Plus.
See it. And when Marlee and Jack came on, and we really just had this amazing team. And we had this kind of like dream run, I guess you will, to the Oscars themselves. We got a ton of press and got to, in a really amazing way. What was so great about doing press for this film is, from the very beginning, from doing these fully accessible screenings before we ever went to film festivals, the intention was at the highest level was to have a film that moved people and also moved the needle on raising awareness for community and important topics like accessibility and inclusive storytelling and a number of other topics. And doing press for the film, we were getting to do that, do that work on a larger scale.
Fulfilling that goal, yeah.
And that was what was really, kept me charged throughout the process, because it is like grueling in its own way, especially when you're doing everything through Zoom. But
because did you get to go to the ceremony?
Yeah,
did,
so it was in
Yeah.
person.
Okay.
Huge credit to not just the Academy, but the producers of the show this year who worked with Soderbergh and Stacey Sher and a number of others who worked with like very challenging circumstances, to say the least, to put on a live show, and they did a tremendous job. I mean, everything was so well run. It was beautiful in that space, and it was really a great experience in person.
How fun that you get to say you went to the Oscars as a nominee. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was very cool and definitely something that was, there wasn't so much time to process things because there was like so much to do every day leading up to it. That I guess, even now looking back on it, that, I guess I haven't fully processed it, but it was a great experience. And, just to answer your part about like not winning, of course we wanted to win, like who wouldn't want to win? But there's this cliched saying of like, getting the nomination is a win in of itself.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is in the sense that like, there's so many variables that go into it and factors and so many things that are out of your hands that like, I don't focus on not winning. I focus more on having a film that, got to reach that level and that we got to share with so many people. So that's like the win, I guess you could say.
Good point.
But yeah, it was an amazing experience and something that I'm glad that that we did it at the last minute to be a part of.
If you're just tuning in on the replay or live, I'm Tony Gapistone, co-founder or founder, usually the co-host of the Brave Maker show. Christina Jackson's not with me today, but the founder of Brave Maker. I'm with Oscar-nominated filmmaker Doug ROLAND up from LA, and we've got just a few more minutes before he's got to get to his next thing, so I'm gonna do one more question. But if you're watching on the 19th of August, he's gonna be in Redwood City tonight, 8 p.m. Pacific time, live in the Courthouse Square, 2200 Broadway in Redwood City. Going to be screening the film at 8 p.m. We will be having a red carpet, step and repeat at 7:30. News Up Now is going to be doing some press around that time, as well as Climate Magazine. Come down and join us. We're going to do a little dinner shindig before with our Brave Maker team around 6:45. Anyone is welcome to come. But Doug, so last thing, did that Oscar nomination, and now that that's continually attached to your name, did it help open doors that you'd hoped for the next whatever you have? Talk about what that looks like, because it's hard to make a film, but supposedly this is going to help, right? That your name is attached to that word Oscar. Yes or no?
Well, yeah, I mean, in short, yes, it definitely helps a lot. I think what in specific ways, I think what was most exciting about the process was that, during the lead up to the Oscars, so many people are watching the film, and I was getting emails from people, either individuals themselves or that worked for companies that I really admire, saying that they loved the film and wanted to, talk with me about other projects. So it's an amazing opportunity to have a lot of people, other people in the industry see your work and hopefully, connect with the like-minded people that like the kind of stories that you like to tell. For me, a lot of it is still going back into a cave and writing, so I was didn't have any other expectation other than that. And that's I've made some choices that have kind of, kept me on that path. There were some things that came to me that weren't necessarily the right fit in that moment. So I was
imagining people throwing scripts at you. Hey, you want to direct this? You want this project? It's yours.
I think everyone's experience is different. I think it is a little bit different being nominated for live action short. You still have to prove yourself as a feature director. So like I did have a couple feature offers and a lot of short offers, but like, for me, I think there's still there's still someone needs to prove themselves as a feature director. But I mean, I'm not really concerned with that because I wasn't planning on any kind of handouts anyway. There's stories that I want to tell that are the things that I'm going to be digging my heels into the sand and pursuing. So, as far as my day to day, it doesn't change that much because of the choices that I've made of the things that I want to pursue. But it does open doors in the sense of, a lot more people knowing who you are, wanting to meet with you, wanting to know what projects you have, and, expressing interest in working with you at some point.
That's cool. Yeah, the work still needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Things aren't being handed to you, even though you have this thing attached to it. And it's good encouragement because sometimes we think it's going to be easy and everything happens overnight, and that is not true.
That doesn't seem to be the case.
Doug, how can people find you online?
You can go to at Doug ROLAND on Instagram and Twitter. You can check out Feeling Through related stuff at Feeling Through or feelingthrough.com. I'd say those are probably the best ways.
Cool. And you got like 5 million something views on that YouTube link. So it's cruising.
Yeah, it's getting out there. It's cool. I will say on one last note, I think one of the coolest things about getting a lot of eyeballs on something is when you get to share it in a lot of different countries and a lot of different cultures. Getting to learn what elements of your story is universal and resonates, that transcends, borders and transcends cultures. And that's been a really exciting thing. A lot of the last number of months has been sharing it internationally. And again, just hearing that there's a lot of elements of it that are universal is one of the cool parts of that.
Yeah, that language is universal, right? The empathy and the connection between your two characters. And with that, I'll say bon viaggio, because he's going to Italy to screen this film. So how awesome. Tutto bene. All right, well, my name is Tony Gavison. Thanks to Doug Roland for being on the podcast today. Again, come join us live. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so you can support us because we depend and are grateful for your generosity to be able to bring Doug up from LA, fly him up here, give him some good food, put up a hotel. These are the things we'd love to do because we care about these conversations. And his film, Feeling Through, elevates this really important discussion around justice and diversity and inclusion. And what does it look like to connect with an other person who might be different? It's a beautiful story. We hope you'll find it. If you're listening to us on the audio version, I will put the link in the show notes as well as his Instagram and contact. And we'll see you next Wednesday for our live show. We are live now every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's with me and Christina. And with that, brave stories change the world, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at bravemaker.org. Like, subscribe, and share. To become a monthly donor, text the word BRAVEMAKER to 44321 or go to bravemaker.com/donate. Thanks for tuning in.